Welcome to the NC Choices webinar series, Teaching Tools for Beginning Farmers, funded by the United States Department of Agriculture's Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program. I am Margaret Ross, Eastern Area Specialized Poultry Agent with NC State Extension, and I'm going to present the module on poultry feed and nutrition. This is one of 5 modules offered in this webinar series. As far as nutrition goes on the poultry management side of husbandry, feed or feeds must meet the bird's needs for energy, protein, vitamins, and minerals. So obviously this is something that will change with growth. Size and palatability are also an important factor as far as making sure that you have the bird's proper nutrition in mind. And water must be clean and available at all times. Also, don't forget that the drinkers must provide enough space and capacity for all of your birds. As far as feeding goes, good quality feed and water are critical. You want to make sure that you are checking your feed tags, and if you have any questions about that you're contacting someone like your local cooperative extension agent to verify that all of the ingredients are what the bird actually needs at that stage of their life and are in the right quantities too. As far as the starter feed goes, that's what you'll feed your birds up to the first 8 weeks of their life. And then they should receive a grower feed from weeks 8 to 12. From weeks 12 to 21, they should receive a developer feed. And then after that, they would receive a layer feed. And don't forget that these presentations are based on layers, not specifically meat birds, which would be a totally different diet. So hens will eat about 5 pounds of feed per dozen eggs that they produce. So that's a good way to kind of think about how much feed you would need for your flock. Obviously, that depends on the size of your flock too. 1/3 pound per day is what they need and that's at about 18% protein. And don't forget that you can also supply them with some goodies. So if you want to go get some mealworms from a local dealer, then you're able to do that, or provide them with some corn or a different type of feed in supplement to their layer feed. Here's some equipment on this slide for older chickens that you may find useful. And there are all sorts of different feeders and waterers out there. And also don't forget that a lot of these things that you can make yourself at your home as well. So you see a couple of different metal feeders and waterers as well as plastic feeders and waterers here on this slide. So you can see they vary in prices. We've got some that are $9 to $12 in price, all the way up to about $20 or $25 in price. And obviously, what type of feeder and waterer you get would depend on the size and age of your flock as well. So you want to make sure that you keep those things in mind, as well as are you able to clean this easily and quickly, as well as disinfect it. So what do you actually feed your chickens? That's a great question that we get all of the time. So on the left, you can see you've got a chick starter or a grower feed. So those are a couple of examples of those types of feeds that we said. Again, that's what you would start them off with when they're very young, up till about 8 weeks of age. And then the grower feed, you see here a couple of examples of them in the middle. And then on the right, you see a layer or an all flock or a scratch feed. And the scratch feed was what I was speaking to as far as giving them a little bit of a goodie. It gives them something fun to search through and pick out what they want to eat first. And they're able to have that in addition or in supplement to their actual layer feed. All right, as far as layer feeding goes, it's important to remember that all domesticated poultry are omnivores. And they have heavy consumption periods throughout the day as well. So in the morning, they actually have a heavy consumption period about 1 to 2 hours after the lights are cut on, or in the case that you may have birds in your backyard, that would be after sunrise. And then in the evenings, they have another bout of heavy consumption as well. That's about 1 to 2 hours before the lights are cut off or before the sun goes down. They do eat in numerous short bouts of feeding. And then the egg and meat stocks are actually fed to appetite. So they're fed to however much that they would like. And that also does help to stimulate their appetite. And it's important to remember that they need to be fed nutrient-dense diets, because that's going to help one of 2 things depending on what type of bird they are, or if they are a dual-purpose breed that would help both of these things, and those are egg production or muscle development. So you want to make sure that if you have layers, that you're feeding a layer diet, because obviously all of that nutrition is going into producing eggs. Or if you have broilers or meat type birds, that you're feeding a feed that will make sure that their muscles are properly developing so that they will be able to go into the food chain or for your consumption. There is a behavioral aspect of how birds eat and as well. And they actually segregate their food. So they'll eat the particles that are the largest sizes first, and then they will go to the darkest colors next. And then they also do eat to flavor, of course, as well. So these are the nutrients that you want to make sure are on the label, that you see that they're getting some version of these nutrients. The carbohydrates, of course, fats, proteins, vitamins, minerals, and water are all important nutrients that are included in a feed label and in a specific diet, whether you have layers, like I said, or broilers, or a dual-purpose bird, where all of these nutrients are going to work with both the meat as well as the egg production. So feed related to energy consumption, this slide is very interesting to me as well. So they do have daily energy requirements. And they obviously increase as the bird ages because they're trying to do more as they get older. The energy requirements decrease as the birds age per pound of body weight as well. So there's a little difference between male and female requirements. And you do want to, within the limits of the energy, affects the actual feed consumption. Energy consumption effects is decreased energy as a result in a pause of production at peak. So they may be a little on the lethargic side at that peak of production, like we spoke about earlier. They also can have decreased energy results in increased feed consumption. So if they're eating too much, they may be on the slow or sluggish side as well. And then decreased energy could also be a result in poorer feed conversions. So a feed conversion is just the rate at which they take feed, they eat that feed, they're able to turn that feed into either meat for the meat birds or eggs for the layers. So at what conversion rate are they able to do that? Some carbohydrate sources from feed ingredients could be corn, or a major cereal source, wheat, which is commonly used as an energy source, or also barley or rye. Some energy sources from fats could include animal fats. They're typically saturated and are solid at a room temperature, and two examples of those would be beef tallow or lard. And then poultry fats are semi-solid at room temperatures, and vegetable fats are liquids at room temperatures and are good sources of the essential fatty acids. And some example of those vegetable fats would include corn oil, soybean oil, and safflower oil.